So, Cassian, I want our readers and followers to meet you, the Vice President and co-founder of the My Theory Test app. And I want to introduce your app a little bit. My Theory Test is a mobile learning tool designed to help the UK's future drivers pass their driving theory test. And the app, as I understood, the app generates a personalized training plan for users to make them succeed. Am I right?
You're right. Absolutely.
Okay, so Cassian, tell us a little bit more about your product. Why is it different and unique for the market?
Sure, absolutely. So as you said, it's an app which helps people pass their driving theory test in the UK, which is a test you have to take before you take your main driving test. There are a number of other products in the marketplace because there's an awful lot of people who take a driving theory test. It's about 1.8 million people a year. But there are two unique things to our app. First of all, my background is television, and I come from that background. And working in television, what's always very important and works very well in the television context is talent, presenters, people who audiences trust to be a companion for them for a television program. So our idea was that we could take that same approach to app development, and that in an educational space, we could bring somebody to this space who users would trust that the product would be good and that they would be safe in their hands. And so the person that we recruited, who I have a long professional relationship with, is James May, who's one of the presenters of Top Gear, which hopefully your audiences will have heard of. It's a BBC television series about cars, and he was one of three presenters, and it was a global hit, the series, so they probably will have heard about it, but it's tremendously important and successful in the UK. And James and the other two presenters have gone on to do a series for Amazon as well, so he remains a much-loved personality in the United Kingdom, and a much-loved personality who's known for his expertise in driving and in being a good and sensible and safe driver. And so, as I say, I had a long acquaintance with him, and so when we were exploring this, I did think, well, wouldn't it be brilliant if James May could be part of this? And I ended up in a pub with him and we were playing darts and I suggested it. And he said, yes, I'd love to be involved. And so as people will see, the name of the app is My Theory Test by James May. He's central to the app. And we can talk about how he appears in the app, etc. Another point. But then the second thing that is unique about the app is we looked at the other apps in the market. And frankly, they're terrible. They'd all been made many years ago. The people who developed the apps hadn't really updated them, and they provided a really quite difficult, quite dry, and quite boring learning experience. And just weren't very effective. And they didn't also use, there's been a lot of work in terms of digital learning and online learning over the last 10 years. They didn't use any of the learnings and any of the insights that have been gathered over that period. So the other thing, which is the other two things, as it were, which are distinctive about the app is, one, tonally, it's much more fun. It's much more enjoyable. And James plays a big part in that. But secondly, also, under the hood, there's quite sophisticated learning technology. The app uses a system called spaced repetition learning, which is an algorithm which has been developed to help you learn a large amount of information effectively. And what the app does is it tracks what you know, what you get right and what you get wrong. It knows what it is that you've got wrong, and it makes sure that you keep being reminded or re-asked the stuff that you've got wrong in order to reinforce the right answers for that area. And as I say, there's an algorithm underpinning the app, which actually works out for the user a full training plan. They enter in what date their theory test is, and it works out a training plan for them that makes sure that they do enough training sessions that they will have learned all that they need to know by the time that they actually come to the date of their theory test. So as I say, it's algorithmic learning on this spaced repetition system. So those are the three main things that make the app distinctive. James May's involved. It's more fun for a young audience, but it's actually got some really quite sophisticated learning technology underneath it.
And personally, I love your design, and I felt like this app is generated for more younger audience to keep their attention and to make them learn. And the things that you just told sounds great. And I think that as you told that the other apps on the market were just awful, it wasn't quite hard to find out the needs of a group of your customers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it should be said that, I've got a long track record in, not in apps, it must be said, but in television and mass audience television in the UK and factual television. So I've done a lot of programming about science, a lot of educational programming. So I hope I've got a fairly good sense of what audiences are interested in. And then we also did some market research, both quantitative and qualitative, when we were first exploring doing the app, and we got a very positive response.
That's great. And how did you build a customer base? Did you use special services or?
What in terms of people buying the app? Well, I mean, it's an interesting business model, actually. And to be honest with you, I would say that we learned quite a lot in the early stages about that market and about the audience. To be honest, we thought that the audience would be quite, somewhat rashly probably, that the audience would be quite focused, that they would take a lot of time, they'd be quite rigorous about how they approached learning for their theory test. We discovered, which probably shouldn't be a surprise, when you're working with 16 and 17-year-olds, actually, a lot of them don't think about their driving theory test until a week before. And so what we found was that we would get an awful lot of people who would, rather than using the app a lot over a long period of time, would use it very intensively just for a short period of time. And I think that does mean that it's a slightly different kind of app from the usual one, insofar as, frankly, our retention is quite low. People use it for a very specific function, which is to pass their theory test. And then, frankly, they delete the app and they get rid of it. But nevertheless, passing the test is really important to them. And so it's a paid for app, which is also quite unusual. And they are willing to pay the £4.99 in order to get a really good learning tool. The other interesting thing we discovered is a lot of people buy the app, and I think thinking that they're going to start training and learning for their test, then they delete it and then they re-download it a few days before their test and then use it in anger. So it's quite an interesting customer base. But as I say, it's an interesting customer base because it's not an ongoing one. It's more people using it for a specific moment in time. But there's an awful lot of people out there. Like I say, 1.8 million people a year sit that test. So there's a big market to exploit.
It's a kind of dynamic thing.
It is, yeah.
And Cassian, be honest, how long does it take to finalize the product concept? And how many iterations and pivots did you take on your side?
Oh, I don't know. It took a while. I mean, I think that, we didn't work with you guys. We'll come on to working with you guys afterwards. We worked with a UK agency, first of all. And I think it was really challenging because actually, in terms of app development, there aren't that many products which come to market which are completely new. The developers that we were working with were very used to working with existing brands who were launching app products. And so that meant that they had design guidelines, they had looks and feels, they had UXs, all the rest of it that they could refer to. Whereas in this instance, we were really working from scratch. And starting from zero. And so that was quite complicated. And, I'll admit at the beginning, we did go down one path, which ended up as a complete dead end. And we really had to go, we're just going to have to stop this and just start again in terms of what the product was, how it worked, everything else like that. Luckily, the second time we got it right, or at least as right as we think it can be, at least for the moment. But we are always improving it. And again, we can come back and talk about that a bit. So yes, it was quite frightening. Gus, my business partner, and I had never made an app before. So that moment when we got where we thought, hang on, this is just completely going down the wrong path, that was quite frightening. But I will say that the developers we were working with, they were really supportive about it. And we were able to do a U-turn, as it were, go back up to the top of the hill and start again. And
that makes it exciting. Your journey, it's special because
you could call it exciting. You could also call it nerve-wracking as well. But yeah. But when you get to a good thing at the end, then it all feels worthwhile.
I bet it is. And did you build up a pilot team before the first kickoff? Or were just you two?
I think, well, we worked with a partner and really, the initial development was really just Gus and I, exploring the market, seeing what was out there and trying to define what it was that we were looking at. And then with a couple of friends who were experts. But really from there, I would say that we went into production pretty fast. And as I say, perhaps possibly too fast, because we ended up going down a path which wasn't quite right. So I would say to people watching, do take the time to really feel confident with what your product is and how it's working before you press go on production, as it were, on actually making it. Although, of course, the problem is that it's actually sometimes only by virtue of going into the process of production that issues emerge that you then have to respond to. So, that doesn't mean that you'll get it right before you go into production, but try and get as much of it right as you possibly can.
And what challenges did you face during the app implementation? How did you solve them?
I think that really the issue, the real challenge was around the spaced repetition algorithm and the learning tools. And it was really, again, we were having to build that from scratch. There was nothing off the shelf that we could take. So that actually meant that there was some quite intensive code work, quite intensive actual programming about how this spaced repetition algorithm would work, how it tracked users' progress, how we then stored that data, where we stored that data, which ultimately ended up being on AWS. How do we get that data back again, et cetera, et cetera. So actually, I suspect, forgive me, unlike quite a lot of kind of app products, there was some proper computer science in there as well in terms of getting it right. And that was, that was challenging. And again, the developers did a terrific job with it, but it was hard work to get right.
What marketing strategy did you use for promoting the app from the outset? Maybe you changed it somehow after.
We did, yeah. So we used the marketing strategy has principally been digital advertising. So we started off with Apple search ads on the App Store, with Facebook and with Google. And it became rapidly quite clear which were the most effective ones. The Apple search ads were effective, but very expensive. It was quite competitive in this area that we discovered. So the bid prices against the key search terms were really high. Whereas on Facebook, using Facebook Ad Manager, which is Instagram and Facebook, that was more cost effective. So we started to double down on that. And Google really didn't do anything for us at all. It's really about managing. It's a very specific funnel for a paid for app. Quite unusual, a paid for app. And I should say this is, we are thinking about changing the model and exploring that. But as a paid for app, really it's about a critical funnel of finding people who are willing to pay and then driving them to the App Store as quickly as possible. The challenge that we had with the Apple search ads was kind of people were already there and kind of knew which product they were looking for. So it was a bit too far down the funnel. The problem with Google was it was kind of just vague search. So it was a bit too high up the funnel, whereas Facebook seems to be at the right point in the funnel for us, which is people who are enthusiastic about buying something but don't quite know which one they want to buy. And so we've kind of consolidated the Apple search ads. We've just done down to the Apple's auto suggest, which has been very cost effective for us. We're really working with Facebook at the moment. Google we've gotten rid of, but the main one that we've changed and moved into is TikTok. And TikTok, we started doing advertising on this summer and has proved as effective for us as Facebook. And I really recommend it for people. They've actually done some really good work on their advertising platform over the course of the last 6 months. And it's very effective. It's very easy to use, actually easier to use than Facebook's, and has proved really good for us.
Sounds amazing. So you want to focus, like in your further marketing strategy, you want to focus on TikTok, yeah?
TikTok and Facebook at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Basically, absolutely. Yeah. And then there are other, as it were, non-digital kind of marketing areas that we're looking at now. Now that we've got the broad base, what's interesting to us now is actually that we're thinking that the next key area in terms of marketing to target is not the people taking the driving theory test, but their driving instructors, the people teaching them how to drive, because those recommendations from those driving instructors are really important. So we're thinking about ways that we can access them in order to be able to get them to be able to promote our app on our behalf.
Nice. It's like ambassadors, yeah?
Exactly.
That's a great idea actually. I think that marketing is like quite essential part of any product to sell it and to spread it all over the world. But I also think that an internal communication aspect is not less important. And maybe you can give some pieces of advice about what fundamental steps can smooth the internal communication establishment, because during the approbation, you see so many mistakes and you need to correct them efficiently and fast.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that absolutely. I mean, it's about team management and how you work effectively with a team. And as I say, both I and Gus have long experience. It was different for us, not in app development or software development, but in television and video production. But there is quite a lot of commonality about that. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of structure, which is that what you're trying to build or create something with a clear end goal. But in order to create that, you need a lot of different people with a lot of different skills, all working effectively together and pointing in the same direction. So I think that, hopefully you guys will say, and hopefully the previous developers will say as well, that we were good to work with. We certainly got good reviews. From our perspective, it was really about, offering clear leadership really as much as anything else, which is this is what the destination is that we want to get to, and really setting up clear structures for people to be able to communicate. And that's a combination of a really good rigorous kind of meeting structure where the right questions are being asked regularly in the right forum, and that people felt that they could get approval for what it was that they wanted to do. But alongside that, really good channels for just ad hoc communication when something comes up. And for us, actually, both for this and working with you guys, Slack has proved invaluable on that front, because I hadn't used it before. We don't use it in TV, but actually in this kind of context, it's great for that kind of ad hoc, question, look at this, deal with this, etc., etc. So that's proved quite effective. And I would say, and it just allows everybody who is part of the team to see what's going on and to keep across it, while still you can organize things into channels so that people aren't swamped with too much information.
Mm-hmm. And Cassian, what else can higher improve the chances of success with the first version of any app?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think I would say that I would say that we're not yet at the sales level that we would want to be. We still want to grow, but I still feel terribly proud of everything that Gus and I, you guys, etc., have achieved. Because actually, we didn't realize when we went into this how many people make apps that just disappear. How difficult it is to build a successful app, and the app is now consistently in the top 10 of the best-selling paid apps in the UK, and consistently gets good sales numbers. And as I say, we'd like more, but I'm still amazed. If I'd known what the odds were against us having that success, perhaps I wouldn't have gone into this, and neither would Gus, with as much enthusiasm as we did. So I don't know if that helps. Remind me of the question, though. I think the point was I'm not sure how to do it better, and I'm just really relieved that we didn't do it worse.
Well, I guess you just previously you just answered this question when you said that a structure can help. Yeah. I thought maybe there's something more.
Well, I think the other thing which has been important is also how much Gus and I have learned. As I said, we hadn't done this before, and how much we've learned over the process of doing this. And I would say, being honest, at the beginning when we launched it, we had a lot of really helpful, really good third parties supporting us. We had a company helping us on ASO. We had somebody helping us with social media, etc., etc. But actually, the thing to learn, and this is Yodel with the company who helps us on the ASO, and they're absolutely excellent. But actually, the thing that happens, and we realized, is that ASO is really important, but it's not that complicated. And when you don't know anything, a company like that is really important, but you can learn from them. And once you've learned from them, and they were very happy with this, then you don't necessarily need them anymore. So I would be, if I was doing it again, I think I would probably keep a tighter eye on the costs that we were spending on everything from advertising to third-party supporting companies, not because I don't think that we shouldn't have spent that money at launch, but just what you want to do is to be continually trying to keep your costs at a minimum. And so always be thinking about, where can I save some money here?
I understand. And do you know how the team that creates security for your app actually protects the customer's data?
I think that's down to you guys. So I have absolute confidence that Relevant are very good on our data security. That's the way I look at it. I mean, when we set it up, it was, we did do a lot of work in terms of GDPR, in terms of data compliance. As I say, we're using AWS for the back end, which is a really good tool for managing all of that. As I say, I don't pretend to know the details about how we're doing it, but I'm confident that we've got a robust system, and a robust system that you guys are continuing to maintain. But it's true. It's a really critical point. It's not an area that Gus and I are experts in. So what you want to do is be really confident that the people who are looking after that for you are experts in it, and they know what they're doing.
I totally feel you. And what's the primary benefit of outsourcing for you?
Being absolutely honest, it's price. I can't pretend otherwise. That was the key driver for doing it. It was simply, agencies in London can be really good, but the rents are much higher, et cetera, et cetera. So it just means more expensive to be working with UK-based teams. But I would also say that's not been the reason why we've continued with outsourcing. And the reason we've continued with outsourcing is it's incredibly effective. Working with you guys has been fantastic. The level of expertise of your developer teams is as good as the people that we get in the UK. And actually, I would say that you guys are able to, I think you've got a fantastic talent base of programmers and coders over there in Ukraine who are of excellent standards, and it's more challenging to find people of that quality in the UK. So the quality of work that you guys have been able to do for us has been absolutely of the standard that we need. And then last of all, the other thing is that you might think, okay, we're going to outsource and we're going to go and work with Relevant in Ukraine because of the cost point, but because of the things that I've discussed, which is the methods of working that we'd already put in place and which you guys work to, which is a combination of regular meetings, which are the key points, Slack in order to catch up with the key details, it works as well as it does in the UK anyway. And particularly, in a world of the pandemic where we all ended up working on Zoom, it feels it feels as efficient as it can be. I mean, I look back when we were doing the first development on this and we were working with the company in London. I used to be jumping on my bicycle to cycle across London to go and have meetings in person with them 3 times a week. And I look at it now, even if we were still working with them, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be doing a Zoom like this. So a Zoom to Ukraine or a Zoom to East London, it's the same.
I understand. I'm really delighted to hear that. And
no, it's true.
Cassian, in what condition do you find the UK's tech talent market right now? I mean, the demands, competition, salaries, because I've already heard about the prices. Yeah, and I totally understand what you're talking about.
Well, I think there's a bit of I'm a bit reluctant to say this, because what I would say is I think companies find it hard to get good talent, but I don't want to say that too loudly because I don't want all your really talented coders running over to the UK. I'd like them all to stay in Ukraine and be working for you and then working for me. But I think what I would say is that it's quite frantic and it's quite high paced, and that for developers, I think it's quite exhausting. I think that the tempo of the work is quite extreme, and the culture is, and I think that people get quite tired out, and I think they can get burnt out. I think it's that kind of big city, we've got to be on the cutting edge. And I think it's okay if you want to do it for a couple of years. But I did get a sense that a lot of people, it was, it's as I say, the pace of it can be exciting, but I think it can also be exhausting.
And did you have some previous experience with outsourcing, or was it your first time?
This was our first time. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
Like,
Gus had a very good friend who did a lot of work actually for a big online retailer. Who had also been outsourcing, and he was really effective because actually we wouldn't have known where to begin, but he'd done it before. So he was able to just do a bit of a survey and look at a number of companies of which you guys came up on the shortlist, and then Gus and I were able to talk to them, and we chose you guys.
And do you consider mixing internal and external teams as a profitable option for future?
I think we, Gus and I, like to keep things very lean and efficient. You know, in the world that I come from, which is television production, you tend to have a very small internal team, and you really just use freelancers and external resource for pretty much everything that you do, and that's very much the way that we've kept it. So really, Splink Industries, the company, is really just Gus and I. And then everything else is done by outsourced people. So we have freelancers for the design. We have you guys working on the development. And that's absolutely fine. Gus and I are very used to that. We're very used to dealing with freelancers on an ongoing basis. And truth be told, we're not big enough yet to justify having people full-time on staff. So actually, it works very effectively for us.
I understand. I understand your decision, and I share it really. And preparing yourself for creating any product and pass through any journey, it's like a trip you need to plan. You have to know what are you going to do, why are you going to do this, and how you're going to do this. And that's why I want to ask you for some pieces of advice for our readers. Maybe you can give us some valuable tips that can push any project to success.
Oh, I don't know. Does this count as success? I think so. I mean, I think that I think you need to be realistic about what it is that you can do. You need to work with your developers. You know that it's challenging. As I say, I'm not an app developer. I am a creator of, a creative. I'm not quite sure what. Both Gus and I are very used to running creative businesses, but it's about, it's about finding the right partners to work with, e.g. you guys, and then having confidence in and trusting them. About what it is that they're doing and building a good relationship and a trusted relationship. And I think that's got to be at the heart of it, which is that you have to acknowledge, software development and product development is a complicated business. No one person knows all the details of what are required. So that means that you have to have really good trust across your team, that person who's got response, and you need to have really good people as well. But then when you've got the good people, you want to trust them and let them do what they're doing. But be there for when there's a problem and be supportive when there's a problem. So rather than, if there is a problem, rather than kind of stamping the table or doing whatever, be proactive and positive about finding solutions and finding workthroughs. And I really enjoy that process, as does Gus, which is that sometimes you can feel like you hit a brick wall, you don't know what the next step is, but I really like that kind of problem solving and working with people to work out a solution to the problem. And that's about, as I say, it's about being positive, about trusting what they know, but also trusting that you, i.e. me or Gus, have a bit of distance on it, and we might be able to think of something which is a better solution or something that's more efficient, so that's the way that I think that's the best way to do it. Get really good people, trust them to do what they're doing, and collectively set yourself goals which are reasonable and which are achievable, but most of all that people feel that they're really making progress and enjoying themselves as they meet each goal.
It's kind of a game thing, yeah.
Yeah, or it's a journey, or it's kind of like a story, as it were. I would say that when we started this again, I think Gus and I had in our imagination that we would just make the app and then we would put it on the market and that would be it, and that would be fine. And then we'd make some money. It's not like that, but actually I quite like that. It's not like that because in terms of marketing, you're always having to come up with new marketing angles, new stories. You can't just keep using the same stuff. So sometimes we have sales, we get James May to do promotional things, etc., etc. But the other thing is with the product itself, it really is about continual improvement and about, okay, we can make this bit better here, and then we can make this bit better here. And actually, if we do this, then this, then this, then this, then we can get to here. And actually, again, I quite like this bit of just working step by step and improving bits of the app with an overall strategic goal about where we want to get to.